What's up, everyone? Welcome to Becoming the 1%. Today is Chris Powell. This is an incredible episode. He is the host of I Needed That podcast. He is the co-host of Extreme Makeover Weight Loss Edition, and his new movement, Move 1 Million, is going to blow your mind what he is doing and helping out the community with. Enjoy this episode.
Cool.
Well, Chris Powell in the building.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Man.
Great to have you, man.
Thanks
I
for coming,
appreciate
bro.
it, guys. Thank you so much.
What a small world, man. You're living right up the road.
Right?
It's so cool.
I know. Like it took me 10 minutes to get here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what, when we finally did connect, and when Andy was like, "You do know he's kind of your neighbor, right?" I was like, "No, she's like, he's right up the road."
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I know. And my ex-wife literally lives around the corner.
Yeah.
So-
Right down the road. It's Arizona. We were talking a little bit about this before we started, but Arizona is such a hub for fitness,
Yes.
for professionals, and for just all of it. It's incredible. What brought you to Arizona? How long have you been here?
Oh, so do you want the real answer? Or...
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do
We
it.
only accept real answers.
Right, exactly. Well, believe it or not, I was actually born here. I was born 10 minutes down the road the other direction
No kidding.
at what used to be called Desert Samaritan Hospital. Now it's like Banner Children's. But I moved away when I was 6 months old. Grew up on the central coast of California. Just jumped around between Washington State, California, Idaho. Did high school up in Portland, Oregon, and Vancouver, Washington. And I needed to get out of the rain. I had to get out of it. And my brother-in-law at the time, he went to Arizona State. And he's like, dude, I'm just going to shoot you guys straight. He's like, Playboy magazine just named ASU as like '1 party school. I'm like, that's it. That's where I'm going.
What year were you there?
This is in 96. This is in 96. And then I came down in fall of 97.
I can imagine enrollment went up quite a bit during that time.
Yeah.
Oh
You
my
could
goodness.
imagine.
Yeah.
And it was all a bunch of bros that came
Yeah.
out. So I was
I'm
part
told
of
it's
the-
tamed a bit over the years. It's
Yes.
not like what it was. It used to be
Yeah.
that.
I was part of that big migration. And I came down and I partied like crazy for like 6 months until my grades tanked. And then comes the threat of real life. It's like, no, we're pulling you out of here. And it's like, wait a second, I better get my act straight.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I started waking up early in the morning. And I was just, running. I was showing up in all my classes, and I got my grades back.
Figure out
But-
that work hard, play hard equation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but half of that wave that came in, they didn't make it past 6 months because
Oh, I can
they
imagine.
just partied like crazy and then bailed.
Yeah.
So,
We had a similar thing. I actually went to Westmont out in Santa Barbara.
Oh yeah.
And similar thing. They called it, I can't remember what they called it. They called it the something drop. But the freshman drop, basically, because they're like, yeah, this is a very, and I had absolutely no business academically being in this environment, was not made for me. And we got hit. I mean, they were saying, they're like, yeah, there's a drop of about 10 to 30% of the class in the first 6 months
Oh, yeah.
because they can't cut it academically. They come out to Santa Barbara, they mistake us for, UCSB, and they think, oh, we're just going to, and then they realize, oh, this place is insane. They really take academics seriously.
Oh yeah.
So it was rough.
Yeah. But you know what though? You learned the lesson. You course corrected, and here we are. Thank goodness, huh?
Look at us.
Yeah.
We're all doing it. We're
Look at
all
us.
at work right now.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. Have you guys seen that meme with Paul Rudd? And he's like, look at us.
Look at
You ever
us.
thought we'd ever be here? Not me. Have you seen that one? It's the best. It's awesome.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, well, but just to continue on the story, it worked out great because, sure enough, ASU, of all places, turned out to be, it was like #2 in the nation when it comes to exercise science and kinesiology behind Penn State.
Wow.
So sure enough, it turned into one of the best places for me to study because I had the greatest professors right there who really instilled a passion in me about not just exercise, but the physiology behind it, the biomechanics and everything. So that's where my journey continued on from there. But it's really cool because like looking at your bio, you've got all the credentials as well. Like you've been at it for a while, my man.
I like the school part. I didn't always. When I went to my undergrad was actually I had a minor in kines and a major in soc. It just turned out being that way at the end of the whole journey. I was just stuck between the two and just went with what I could graduate first.
Yeah.
But I became very, very academically inclined after the fact when I went back for the master's and really just honed in on exercise science.
Yes.
That's really when I figured out A, that I wanted to do this with my life,
Yeah.
and B, that there was a real gap between the individuals who actually took the seriousness of schooling and took that to the next level
Yes.
compared to everybody else. This is a very saturated world that we're all living in.
Oh yeah. Especially
Yeah.
with social media that just through fuel on the flames for sure.
No kidding.
Yes.
I feel like we all kind of came. It's great though, because I feel like we all kind of came into this when social media was just starting. So you have a very sort of interesting perspective on the beginning and the now, which is not obviously the end, but the where it started and what it took to be like a professional before social media and versus like what it takes to be now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's a totally different landscape.
What have you seen? I mean, because you've seen a lot of this stuff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so I came into it from traditional media. So, I came from my exercise science degree at Arizona State, and then I moved into training, and it was wonderful. But and from training, I actually started to reach out as I was expanding my business as a personal trainer. I ended up landing a gig as the Good Morning Arizona, the quote unquote fitness guy. Right? So it was a Monday morning segment. And from there, it was editorials and it was just a bunch of local stuff. But it was a really good way to utilize traditional media in order to grow a brand. But I was also, I'm like you, I'm passionate about fitness. So it's an easy thing to do. Yeah. Put me in front of a camera, put me in front of a microphone, and I'm super stoked about this stuff. And
you also have, though, I mean, a very compelling and a very convincing presence in front of the camera.
Well,
there's a lot of guys, and I sincerely mean this.
Positive would be another word too. Very positive.
Thank you.
A radiating positive, and that's for this episode. I was like, I'm so excited to talk to this guy. I feel like I know his vibe. I've already seen him. You have a very good presence in front of the camera. There's a lot of guys that are even people who are very knowledgeable in this industry. Like, I mean, I love Dave Tate, but Dave Tate on a camera, you're like, oh man, all right, let me get through this. Let me try to get the knowledge. But you have both. Well, you've got both going on.
I appreciate that, but I also acknowledge that guys like Dave Tate, guys like, Mark Ripito. I mean, like we can go.
Paula Quinn.
Yeah. Paula Quinn. Yes. Staley.
Paula Quinn was actually pretty good on camera. I liked his presence. He was pretty good.
He was good because he didn't care what you thought about him, but he was going to tell you exactly the way it was. And with the French Canadian accent and everything, but brilliant. His German volume training and everything. I mean, all those guys. Paul Check, you remember Paul Check?
Yes.
Gary Gregg. I mean, we could go on about like the names.
Dorian Yates.
Oh, of course, Dorian. Dude. Yes,
that guy.
Yes. But
you want a NoCo? We didn't even ask. Do you want one? But right from the fridge.
Don't mind if I do.
Yeah, of course. There's caffeine or non-caffeine.
Let me go non-caffeine for just for now. I get a little too amped up.
The Apple one has no caffeine, I'm pretty sure.
They're all super good. Have you ever had one of them? You ever seen their company before?
I've seen the company, but this is going to be my first time. So
it's pretty damn good.
Let's get some ASMR going on here. Ready?
Dang it! Here you go. Chris Powell, pass me one.
Cheers, Jim. Okay, here we go.
I prefer Brandon's not in the cheers.
If I'm not in the cheers, enhance the cheer.
There you go.
Thanks, buddy.
The one time the wide camera would have been useful.
Yes. Cheers, Jim.
Cheers.
Yes.
Yeah. Cheers to us. Cheers to NoCo.
That's good. That's really good.
Shameless
flavor,
product
actually.
placement.
Yeah. No, I really like the flavor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're great.
Solid. They did a really good job there.
So traditional media.
Yeah, traditional media.
How'd you get into that?
Well, so so before we even started the podcast, we were talking about some of our buddies that are in special teams, and I ended up when I was training at a local gym here, a good friend of mine who was also a personal trainer, he was doing really well. I was doing really well, and if you're a personal trainer, you're doing really well at your gym. You got a big roster. The next step for every trainer is, and it's just the nature of the beast. You take all your clients and you go somewhere else and you start your own thing, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
So guilty as charged. He and I teamed up. We went and we started our own personal training company. We bought out the training rights to a world gym in Tempe, and that backed right up against Athletes Performance (API) back in the day, which
I remember
now
API.
Exos.
Yes.
So my buddy Jason and myself, we ended up opening up this training facility in the world gym, and we had the rights to all the personal training. And once we opened up, we're like, hey, this is awesome. How do we market? And so I ended up landing a gig just for my buddy. We were modeling Hugo Boss suits on the local news. And this is a lesson to any fitness professional out there, right? And so my buddy who's working at Hugo Boss, he's like, hey, can you come into Channel 3? And I just need you to model a suit. And I thought, what a great opportunity. Because like here I am, fresh out of school. Fresh-ish out of school. I'm looking to grow my personal training. I might as well at least ask a producer if they're interested in any sort of idea for a segment. So I actually went in there prepared. And so, yes, I was rocking a Hugo Boss suit. And I asked someone there, I said, hey, is there a producer I could talk to just about doing a segment? They said, they pointed to a lady over in the corner. I said, okay. So I took a sheet over there. I said, hi, my name is Chris Powell. I've graduated with a degree in exercise science and physiology. Here's just some ideas that I had that I think could be a really cool segment for you. And she stopped, she looked up, and it was top 3 button thigh exercises. And, it was like just different concepts for a segment. She goes, no one's ever just asked me that face to face before. Yeah, what? 2 weeks. You want to come back on a Monday? Just like that. I landed a gig.
Wow.
It's the power of the ask. Mm-hmm. I was sitting there thinking, I was like, yeah, I'm going to ask her. No, I'm not going to. She's going to think I'm stupid. No, I'm going to ask her. No, I can't do that. It's disrespectful. Yeah. No, what's the worst that can happen? It's that whole conversation. What's the worst?
She can say no.
I could walk out there in the exact same position I'm in right now. But I walked out of that station with a TV segment. And I came back fully prepared. I rocked the segment, and they invited me back the next Monday. And it turned into a thing.
Obviously not in the suit on the
Yes,
way back.
not-
We're in the exercise
Yes,
gear, so
yes.
they can see. Did
Yes.
you have a background playing sports? I mean, in college or anything like that?
It was swimming. It was tennis. It was some jiu-jitsu when I was younger.
Uh-huh.
It was, and I loved football, but I was terrible at it. And I got my butt kicked out there playing football. And so that didn't last long. That was a sophomore year thing.
Right.
And then it ended very quickly. But that was it. But I actually found major passion in fitness when I quit the football team. Mm-hmm. It was leaving football when I was a sophomore. I had worked out a little bit here and there, but that's what fueled me because I was so small. I was the tiniest kid out there, and I just got my butt kicked. And they made it really clear I wasn't going to be a part of their team. They weren't having it. They weren't letting me drink water at the fountain and everything. And I was the new guy out there.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really something. It was not a good experience. And I came home and I was so broken about the whole thing. My parents actually saw that, and they bought. Sure enough, I came home from school. I was like 2 weeks into my brand new school. It was a new high school. I was a new kid. We had just moved up from California. I walk in the door, and my parents had cleared out all the living room furniture, and there was a weight set in the middle of the living room floor. Because they saw that it broke my spirit.
Yeah.
And there's a weight set in the middle of the living room floor, and I was the tiniest kid out there, like by a long shot. And I started working out in the living room, and that's what started my passion. And then it continued on into my degree and everything. But I found myself actually at the high school in my junior and senior year. I was so passionate about this stuff, and I couldn't hold it back because I saw how it changed me and it gave me my power back. I found myself actually training some of the football players because then they were coming to me saying, how can I increase my bench? How can I run a faster 40? And I was it was bro science at the time. I was reading Flex magazine and Muscle Up. And I was sharing with them what I was buying off the grocery store shelf, but I was so passionate about it. I had all these kids. We were all working out together in the gym at the high school.
Astounding the similarities between a lot of the stories that we hear, especially from high-end professionals in fitness and professional athletes who almost refound their strength from fitness.
Yes.
Joe Rogan talks about how he was bullied, how he was picked on. Then he found fitness, he found jiu-jitsu, and he found his purpose, and he got stronger. And then he found out, if I hit the weights, I'll get even stronger. Yeah. It's very empowering is a good word. I like that word for what it does. And I think that's why it's got so much popularity around it. Yeah. And why you ultimately, one segment turned into 2, turned into 3. There are so many people out there that are struggling just with their day-to-day existence, especially now. Yeah. And you have done so much stuff. Since then, obviously everybody, but for those who don't know, you were the host for how many years for Extreme Makeover?
5 years.
5 years. And it's Extreme Makeover Weight Loss Edition.
That's correct, yes.
Perfect.
Yes, on ABC.
How in the world, first off, was that was not your first gig? Not even close. Was it?
It was not. It was not. I appeared on a reality show before that as well.
Which one? What was it?
So it was on NBC, and it had nothing to do with fitness. It was a dating show.
Yes.
On NBC.
Yes. I knew it.
Yes, and I almost want to say it was 2003.
Which one? See if you can find it.
It was called, good luck, it was called For Love or Money. On NBC.
Wow.
Yes.
As
like
if
a
they
horrible
didn't
concept.
put all their... it's horrible, but is anything really going to be worse than Olivia Kaiser? Have you ever seen Love Island?
No, I've only heard about it.
We had Olivia on Olivia Kaiser, the girl who got hit with the golf ball in the face. You ever seen her? From the challenge. From the challenge.
Yes.
She's a beast. She's a great person.
Yeah.
Awesome. You got to connect with her.
Okay.
But she was on a show prior to the challenge called Love Island.
Yes.
Basically, this, I don't know how this like Epstein shit went on or how they ever got this through the Me Too culture. But they take these participants, they put them on an island, just like the name insinuates,
Right.
and they can't leave. And they are basically forced to sleep in a bed with the other participants. And whether or not they do anything, it's who you're paired up with. They have cameras rigged everywhere.
In the bathrooms and everything.
Bathrooms, in the bedrooms. She's telling us this, and I'm sitting here like this, like, Jake, how is this even legal? Reality TV is nuts. So what was the premise of what was it called? Money and
For Love or Money.
For Love or Money.
Yes, and so and here's the thing though, they actually fooled all of us into coming to this location because the show that they told us we were going to be on was called Adventures in Love. And when they shot
a little different.
Yeah. And so when they pitched it to us, they said, I signed a waiver that said I'm willing to go skydiving, bull riding, scuba diving, like do all these like crazy adventures with other adventure seeking women. Right. And so I was like, yeah, let's go. And then sure enough, like I passed through the interviews. They sent me to LA. They quarantined me in a hotel with all these other guys, but we can't see each other or anything. So because they don't want anyone talking, they don't want anyone interacting until the cameras are on. And then after about, I don't know, it's like 4 or 5 days there.
What?
Yeah, because it's part of the psychology of it. A lot of times, and I don't know if they still do it with reality shows, but a lot of times with these reality shows where they bring everyone together, they send them to a location where they have to keep them separate. Because when people are isolated by themselves, you get the psychologically a lot starts to happen when you put them together into a group, because then sure enough there's a pecking order starts to happen.
Yeah.
Different aspects of personality come out.
Interpersonal connections or dislike.
People don't bring this identity from wherever they came from into this place. In the first 24 hours, they are that person from, Biloxi, Mississippi, or Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or whatever it is, Austin, Texas. Yeah. And then when they're isolated by themselves, after 3, 4, 5 days, they start to become a little bit more vulnerable. Then you throw them into a big group with a bunch of other males or females, and it's just like, and the fireworks happen. So they quarantined us. And
this is nuts.
Yeah. And
such a social experience.
Yes, it's an experiment. Yeah.
Engineering, I guess.
It's really something. Especially to kind of know what's going on, but then reflect and see my own personal experience going through it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening. And like, and they give you a chaperone, someone who's with production, who's always keeping an eye on you. There you go.
Okay.
So,
I love it for Love or Money.
That was the guy version with all the bachelorettes. I was part of the one with the single bachelorette and a bunch of guys.
Oh, so you're all competing with men for one woman.
Yes.
Was this prior to the existence of the Bachelor or the Bachelorette?
This was, I think it was around the same time. Okay, hold on. Is this my group?
This is a very pixelated.
Yeah,
it's a tough.
Here's the thing. Nope, that's not, so I was on season 4. Okay, here we go. That's it right there. Go to the one with the pink sign that says For Love or Money. Go far right, second from right. There you go. That's me front. Second from right. At the bottom.
The blonde hair right
with
there.
The big puffy hair.
I see right there. Yes. How old were you?
I must have been. I get 24 or 25.
Goodness.
Yes. I think I was 25 there.
And there's 2 women, it looks like.
Yes. And that was a big surprise. It's supposed to be one, and they brought the other one back. You know how these reality shows.
Right.
Yeah,
There's
it's
a
like,
twist.
yes, there's always the twist. So they brought the other one back.
So they didn't really pair you up with either one. They're like, hey, guys, pick one.
Well, the premise of the show is that, again, we all thought we were going to go there for this adventure. They threw us all together. They said they were taking us to the airport. They took us to a mansion in Bel Air. And the guy opens up the door and says, welcome to For Love or Money. And all of us are looking around like, what the heck did we just get ourselves into? So they bring us in there and they start telling us about this incredible bachelorette who's looking for love. But here's the thing. Your job is to get her to fall in love with you. If there's a real connection, though, and either way, however it goes, there could be a connection between you and her, or you are given a blank check. It could be worth $1 or $1 million, or anywhere in between. But you don't know what it is until you hold it under a black light, and you can actually see what that check is worth. And so we've all got our blank checks, right? And we don't know how much is on there. You just can't tell.
Sure.
And so your job is to get her to fall in love with you. Now, if she chooses you of all those guys, then you get to pick between her and this blank check.
And if she doesn't, you're just still
And
stuck.
If she doesn't, she kicks you off, and you're done.
got
Yeah,
it,
you,
got it, got
you
it.
don't get any money. And so, and here's the best part, though. I mean, some of those guys, I really feel for them because they did and said some things that was just so cringe, and it didn't look good on them for what it's worth.
And it probably didn't go away for a while.
Oh no,
like a
exactly.
while.
Yes,
you're 25. People will remember you.
Oh, this is 2002, 2003, and so there's only so many channels that people watching. The internet's not around at this time. Everyone's watching TV, so everyone knows who you are when you're on this show. And so anyway, they were both lovely ladies. The blonde got booted, and then it ended up being the girl on the left.
Are they not both blonde?
You know, the one on the left was more brunette. There's a big shine off her hair.
Got it.
The red dress.
Yes, the red dress. Her name was Rachel.
Red dress stayed, or
Red dress stayed.
Okay.
She's the one that made it. So the guys actually voted them between the girls. So we voted the blonde off. We kept Rachel.
Got it.
She was great, but there was never a connection, and I was honest about that from the get go. It was, you know, what's really cool though. She understood. And she and I, again, we got along really well. And so she kept me around. I was like top 5. I made it to the top 5 in the show, which is great.
Wow, that's great.
And again, we got along great. We had like, you know, a couple dates and, stuff like that. But there was no real connection. I wished her the very best. But I was always open about the fact that I'd take my check over her. Even in all the side interviews, I'm like, look, she's fantastic, but I don't know how much is on this check. I'm taking the check, right?
Even if it's $1.
Yeah, because I don't want to get in the way of her finding love.
I'm not getting quarantined for free.
Yeah, and I could use the money. So sure enough, my check was worth $500,000.
Whoa.
Get out of here.
Wow.
Wow.
So I
Oh,
know.
good call.
Great call.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
what a
for
great
sure,
call.
For sure. But she kicked me out. So
That's
she
fine.
booted me.
Wait, do you keep the money though?
No.
Oh, I
No,
didn't
no,
think
no.
so.
Wait, you
Yeah.
don't? Why don't you?
No,
You have to
I
get to the
wish.
final.
You
'Cause
gotta-
then you
yeah.
got to choose between her or the money.
Oh, you got to.
Oh.
Yeah. I
So
know.
it was for free ultimately.
It was for free. Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the twist. And I thank goodness I was myself. I was genuinely myself through that entire experience.
Right.
The production company that shot that show, guess who the production company was for Extreme Weight Loss or Extreme Makeover Weight Loss Edition?
Guessing it was the same
exact
one.
same production
Exact
company.
same one.
Wow.
Because I kept in contact with the casting producers and with the CEO and everything.
And at this time, you had your degree. Obviously, you're 25, so they knew you were an exercise science guy.
Yeah.
And you had a segment or two on
Yes.
another on the network.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yes.
That's awesome. Okay.
And at this time, I had actually I was about a year into working with a gentleman who I met through Channel 3. He wrote in asking for help. He was 630 pounds at the time. And I started working with him, and he became my best friend. And so I ended up driving out to his house every other day. For 2 years, he ended up losing 400 pounds.
Wow.
No
surgery?
No surgery at all. He got surgeries afterward to remove the skin.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
got his
yeah.
eyes done and got his teeth done and everything. And I helped him get certified to be a trainer and everything. And so it was, we were a year into that.
What's his
journey.
name? Can
His
we
name
pull
is
up
David Smith.
Does he have a Instagram?
Yeah, look up
Sure he does.
David
Yeah.
Smith, Chris Powell, weight loss. And you can see
400 pounds. That's
that's what he
incredible.
lost. He started at 630 he stopped
for
at
him.
229.
It's like getting 2 dudes off your back.
Oh, and he did it in 2 years, which is really fast.
It is fast.
But but at the same time, and I mean that's a whole
200 pounds a
another-
year?
200 pounds 200 pounds a year. And so this is
him. This
is
is him.
David, and he's been through his ups and downs in the process. If you check out if you just Google David Smith, Chris Powell.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even realize he posted me.
Yeah, I was just saying, I think I saw you on there.
Yeah. So I ended up going through some really tough times actually after all of this. In 2006, I herniated a disc in my spine. I ended up getting prescribed painkillers, Vicodin, that turned into a 2-year heavy addiction painkillers. I ended up losing everything, living out of my car. Wow. And it was actually David and his family, they opened up their doors to me and they let me sleep on their couch for a good 4 or 5 months to get back on my feet. Oh. And
this is still pre-extreme weight loss.
This is before extreme weight loss.
Before extreme weight loss, but after the money love show.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, exactly. And so a lot of people, they see how I helped him lose a lot of weight, but they don't realize, man, he helped me just as much or more than I ever helped him. And I mean, he's great. I was just texting him the other day, and he's gone through some crazy ups and downs in the process. He ended up gaining the weight back and then losing it, then gaining it back and then losing it.
That was going to be a question I wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
Very big question with regards to not just David, but with the individuals you've worked with all throughout 5 seasons of the show.
Yes.
How often do you see these huge transformations swing back the other direction? And why do you think that happens?
Often. And that has probably been, that's the most difficult aspect that I beat myself up over. I have been on a never-ending quest not to figure out how to help people lose the weight. That's the easy part, but how to genuinely help them keep it off. And it has changed my approach so much over the course. I mean, even going through my own mental, and we're going to talk about mental health here because we have to. We can't have the conversation about physical health without talking about mental health. Even going through my own journey, but really helping my friends and being there with them as a friend. And I say friends because like when I help someone through a journey of transformation, like it's a very personal thing. And it's so like we develop a relationship and they become my good friends. Rachel, like I was just talking about, she came up with the name. I needed that for our podcast, and she's she's the executive director of Move 1 Million, and she with my company and everything. Yeah. She's from season 5 of my show. I took her through her journey of transformation. Like the people.
Oh, she was a contestant.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why I
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
cool.
Oh my gosh.
Relationship.
It's a lifelong thing. Absolutely. Rachel, the different Rachel from season 1 of the show. She's season 1, episode 1. Rachel Oliver is now name's Rachel Curtis. She was just with me yesterday. She actually helped me take my son and all of his buddies to the lake for his birthday yesterday. She moved out from Georgia. Like, these people are in my life forever.
Yes.
They're great friends. Bruce Pitcher, he had an incredible episode from Utah. He was season 4. He lives 2-3 miles that way, and he was one of our head coaches for the longest time. And now he's off doing his own thing, coaching people through the journey of transformation.
Wow.
So it's a very personal thing.
It's part of the reason why I think there was so much popularity around this show. Is what a great way to contrast in comparison to the first show you were on. And most reality TV shows have this very superficial, fake type of vibe. Like no one can watch The Bachelor, The Bachelorette and be like, wow, this is really what it's like. This is so incredibly real. This is reality TV.
Right, yeah.
It's so fake, it's funny. That's why we watch it.
For sure.
But something like what you guys did, and to have that interpersonal connection with these contestants that now is still here. How many years later? How long has it been since you were...
This is the eight years since the show ran its course, since the show's been off.
Stopped.
Yeah.
So 8 years later.
Yeah.
And you had 5 seasons. So some of these people you've known for like 12 years plus. That's amazing.
Yeah.
To have that real connection with someone from a television show.
Yeah. Yeah. But that was the beauty of it. And here's the thing and this is what I always told myself and even my ex-wife, because we were going through this together in the process, but we would always say, our job is to help these people transform. Let them shoot a show around it. And that's because the thing is, if we get so wrapped up on the production side of things and making a television show and giving into like, being fed lines and all these different things, it's not real. And you lose that connection. So like, and the thing is, if you lose that connection, this as well as I do. If you're coaching someone through it's all based on trust. They must trust you. And they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, as the saying goes. And it is 100% true. And if they know you genuinely care, then we can help someone genuinely through the journey. If they don't trust you and they're not going to listen to you, they're not going to get the results, and there's no show in the first place.
Yeah.
So just focus on the transformation and let the people behind the cameras do the work behind the cameras. Let them shoot a show around it. And that's what we would always tell ourselves, and that's what created the real magic. You could feel the connection, and the connection is real because look what happened when all the cameras went away. We're all still
here.
We're all still best friends. We all work together.
Yeah.
We're all family. It's the coolest thing. Alex from season 1 also. I was literally just texting him 3 days ago. David, my buddy who lost all the weight, he and I were texting yesterday. Yeah. We're all of them, they're just beautiful people, and some of them, a handful of them, circling back to what you had asked before. After the show, they end up gaining the weight back, and especially because it's such a personal thing. Like I was always seeking, like, how can we help how can we help that not happen? Because I mean, if you can crack that code, think about all the people who suffer with that journey of just they gain it back and then they lose it.
The yo-yo.
They're just yo-yoing for life. So okay, how can we approach this in a much more realistic, long-term manner that they can that they can adopt for the rest of their lives, right? That's what we're trying to solve. And if you don't mind, I mean, like, I'm happy to share what I've discovered in that space.
Please.
Because of my good friends who I've helped lose weight who've gained it back. And when we changed the conversation because early on in my transformations, it was all about follow this diet. This is the kind of progressive overload we're going to do. Here's how we're going to do your cardio. And it was very science-based, and which works. That works. But the thing is, if you put the power in the treadmill or in the salad then it loses all of its efficacy. When we started to change the conversation to the people that we're taking through the journey and say, look, instead of me sitting in front of, we're just going to say, John, for example, and John comes to me and he says, hey, look, man, John's 450 pounds. He says, man, I really want to lose 200 pounds. I'm in such a dark place. I hate myself. And this is where I'm at. And when I changed my perspective and the way I look at John, instead of having 200 pounds of excess body fat, instead I see John as having 200 pounds of broken promises to himself. And when we change that perspective to personal integrity, just knowing that John he makes promises and breaks promises over and over and over and over to himself. He doesn't hate himself because he's 450 pounds. He hates himself because deep down inside, he's written contracts to himself over and over and over again that he keeps violating. And there's no greater act of sabotage than to say you're going to do something to yourself
To break a promise to yourself, yeah.
And when I'll sit with John and be like, dude, look, man, I'm looking at 200 pounds of broken promises. He's like, what the hell are you talking about? I said, well, let's try something. How many times have you said the diet starts Monday? He goes, oh, shit. How many hey, tell me, did you say 2015, this is my year? Yeah. How about 2016? 2017. We can keep going, bro. How many times did you set your alarm for 6 a.m. to do 30 minutes of cardio and hit snooze until you actually had to get up, peel yourself out, and go to work? Oh, man, damn it. I'm like, yeah, exactly. You don't hate yourself because you're 450. You hate yourself because you made a promise to yourself over and over and over again, which is it's a sacred contract. You don't realize the power of your own promises. And I said, John, you're going to do something extraordinary when you realize the power of your own promises and you start making really smart promises and you start keeping them. You hated yourself one step at a time. You stepped down into hell. You didn't fall into it. And we're going to get you out of that one step at a time. Just the way you got there, that's how we're going to get you out. And that's how we started approaching transformation in the last path. And this is all I care about now, because this is what the world needs to know. And this is I feel like it's my mission to share it now, because transformation is about keeping promises to yourself. Because just like there's no greater act of sabotage than to break those promises, there's no greater act of love that for yourself than to follow through with the commitment that you make.
Heck yeah.
When you make that commitment, whatever that is. My job as a coach is to make sure that commitment is small enough that I know you got to win every day. You got to win it every single day. And step by step by step, I'm going to teach you how to love yourself. And oh yeah, you're going to lose a lot of weight too. I don't give a flying F about the number on the scale.
Amen.
My job is to teach you how to love yourself.
Yeah.
And it's just they come to me trying to lose weight, and my job is to teach people how to love themselves. That's at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
Oh yeah. Stop watching the scale.
Powerful.
That's it. And that's the mission I'm on. And when I could teach them how to do that, they can keep the weight off.
Yeah.
Because it's not about the weight. It's not about the scale. It's not about the treadmill. It's not about the effing salad. It's about the promise that you make to yourself. And that's where the power is.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That's everything.
That's amazing. I'm sure that at some point in your schooling, in your past, sports psychology came into play, and maybe this was your experience too, but at the time, I don't think I fully appreciated it when I took it as a course type of thing. I was always like, well, okay, sports psychology, okay, get me out of here. Get me to exercise physiology. I don't need to know. You really do come to appreciate once you start working hands-on with more and more and more cases. And I want to know if this has been sort of your experience as well. the deeper you dive and the more you go into these interpersonal connections with these people who have 400 pounds, with these people who have 400 broken promises to themselves, do you find that it is almost always the results of an underlying problem, maybe centered around trauma or something? And does that come out to you in a way that you maybe didn't expect when you first got into training? You are basically a hired shrink for these people that otherwise, who maybe even have an aversion to going to therapy, but they'll come to you. Has that been experience for you as well?
100%.
Yeah.
And it's so funny that you just traced back the exact same thought process that I've had so many times of, damn, I should have paid more attention in exercise psychology. Yes. My professor, Dan Landers. And I took the class, I passed the class, I memorized a lot of it. Dan, if you're watching, thank you for everything. I should have paid attention so much more than I did. And I even thought about going back to school for a degree in psychology because I didn't realize how important it is again, we can't have the conversation about physical health without talking about mental health.
Yeah.
And then these individuals are coming to me, and a lot of times things that they haven't shared with anybody in 3 decades, all of a sudden it comes out in the middle of a session, and I'm not qualified to handle that. That's out of my scope of practice, and I know where my lines are. And so I'm thinking, what do I do with this? And this is actually where when I started working with my folks on the show, we had a team of psychologists. And so when these things started to come up we immediately had that kind of medical support, and the psychological support, or from either psychologists, psychiatrists, whatever it might be, to help them navigate that and give them the tools that they needed. And then I could actually take a role as a supportive friend.
Right.
And then when it came to the application and the movement and all these different things, I'm right here with you, but I can speak both languages. I just can't do the work that the psychologist does, but I can support their work in helping this individual. Yeah. And so, but it was beautiful and powerful when these things would come up, because then you literally see the parking brake on someone's life gets released. And it's just like when they unload this trauma, you see the reality of how that emotional weight physically was holding them back. And then it's just my job almost just to get out of their way and let them go. And it's like, make sure they stay within the bumpers, right? Like within the lines. But man, that's you guys get it, especially living in this world. And I see the smiles and the nods. It's just like, that's what we live for as a coach. It's when you see it.
It's very satisfying when you see it in person.
You see the lid on that they've had on top of them for so many years. It comes flying off.
And how often it happens. It happens. I mean, you're in a very. It's almost the perfect storm, because when you're really working with somebody in this type of an environment, I mean, first off, they're so physically challenged by what you're demanding that they do, and they're coming in with this emotional baggage. It's almost kind of inevitable that they are gonna, if they trust you, as you put it, and if they start to see you as a friend, they're gonna start to unload that stuff on you. And if you are, especially if you're a novice trainer, you need to be prepared for the fact that, hey, your client may come out with it. Hey, I'm really thinking about divorcing my husband. Right. Hey, I am really struggling with this.
Yeah.
And like you said, understand what the boundaries are, and what, just like any type of an actual psychiatrist, you don't give direct advice to people and that stuff, but you need to be prepared to deal with that and to be an encouraging friend. I like that. I love that a lot, actually, to be an encouraging friend.
Yes.
You're not going to go wrong if that's what you do.
That's just it. And understanding where your scope of practice, where those parameters lie. And so you're not going to try to step out and solve their problems and also risk sending them in a direction that's not.
I have a local family therapist that I will send my clients to, be like, look, that is really tough. I'm so sorry to hear you're going with it.
Yeah.
You know what? I got this guy. I don't know if you want his number, but I know a guy. He's really good with this stuff, and he's a professional.
Yeah.
Can I give him your information?
Absolutely.
I'd love that. Or no. But either way, you're ready to do that. That's man. Wow.
And that
powerful
takes a big
stuff.
amount of maturity to step back and go, hey, that's not my lane. I'm going to send you to someone that can help.
Yes.
I'm sure a lot of people have gotten terrible advice from personal trainers when it comes to therapy.
I'm guilty of that. I'm also guilty of early on in my career having a massive ego and thinking that I had to have all the answers. And I can't tell you how many times I gave the wrong answers to people. And I BS'd some shiz because I felt like I was in a corner and that they were coming to me and they're paying me as a professional. And so I was trying to be that. And I realized that sometimes it's best as a professional to say, I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know.
Yeah, but somebody else does. And the more I started to do that, by the way, that gives you a hell of a lot more credibility.
Oh, yeah.
The moment you're like, dude, I don't know the answer to that. There's a lot of people out there that are way smarter in that arena than me. And by the way, but I know someone you can go talk to. People love that.
Yeah.
They love that authenticity because what doesn't look good.
They don't know either. We got common ground. We both don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you send someone in the wrong direction because you BS'd it, boy, if you got a conscience, it's going to stick with you. You know?
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, yeah. No, it's just one of the many, many, many ways that you as we are the front lines of health professionals. We are the person you should be seeing before you go and see a doctor. I mean, if you see us consistently, hopefully you don't have to go and see a doctor really that often.
That's, you know what, it's prevention. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we are the boots on the ground when it comes to prevention of a lot of different things, of a lot of chronic diseases, right?
Thank you so much for seamlessly transitioning to this topic. What is the actual role of a trainer, of a physical trainer in preventing the disease of our society? And what is really the difference between prevention and then, I guess, adaptation to the problems that you have once you get to the doctor?
Okay, this is a big question.
One gets a lot more government funding than the other.
Yeah, boy.
We're gonna go deep into this because I know there's been a lot, and you have done a lot of stuff directly in response to COVID-19,
Yes.
all of that kind of stuff. And it seems like this topic, how in the world this topic got political, I don't know. I don't understand. I hate it more than almost anything else. I hate the fact that health and wellness is now somehow weirdly split between party lines.
Yeah.
Like what? If I believe in exercise instead of going to get a vaccine, or somehow I'm a Republican?
Right.
What in the world is that?
Right. Yeah, and I stay so far out of those discussions because my commitment and my mission is to help everybody. And so if I even so much as like start to lean toward like agreeing on one side or the other, then I lose all the people I'm trying to help. And it's like, hey, I don't know. I don't know the science. I don't know that arena, that field or anything. What I do know is exercise science. I do believe in the power. And by the way, if you pull the literature on its incredible ability to for depression, anxiety, obviously obesity, diabetes, cancer, stroke. I mean, like, here we go. Create the list of all the things that exercise benefits. And this is going to be my role, the role of the trainer. I say my role, and I'm hopefully I'm speaking on behalf of the entire population of trainers. But like, what we can prescribe is we can prescribe exercise. Mm-hmm. You can take a look at someone, and to a certain extent, we have like, corrective exercise specialists, etc. And so we can help people with muscle imbalances, and we can encourage people to increase their activity more, and we can do all of that. We cannot prescribe any kind of dietary changes. That's going to be the role of a registered dietitian, but we can make suggestions, all kinds of suggestions, that we can share the literature with people of, hey, this is what's going to happen if you start eating real whole natural food. Hey, you should look into, perhaps based on all these different things, would you consider looking into, I don't know, removing some hydrogenated oils from your diet? Hey, here's a number of a registered dietitian if you want to talk to them. But like,
which oftentimes they don't need.
No.
Most people they do not need to talk to a registered dietitian. No. Your suggestions would be enough if they just followed them.
Sure.
Then they would stay on the prevention side of their diet. Is so incredibly huge with preventing disease, with preventing anything.
Yeah.
What you are eating is literally what you become.
Yes, absolutely.
Depression too. I mean, diet plays into depression as well. So
huge role in depression as well. And so, but going back to like the prevention side of things, we, like I said before, like we are the boots on the ground when it comes to helping people prevent disease.
Right.
A lot of diseases. I mean, there's a handful that, okay, we're not going to play a role in that. But yes, I mean, and since COVID, it just got really tricky and really sticky, and it was like, why? Please, let's stop, because the thing is, every human being on earth needs to move more. And unfortunately, because of the quarantine, guess what happened? I mean, we were already on this astronomical rise in obesity.
What was
and
it
cancer
prior to
and
COVID? I
diabetes.
mean, it was like 60 or 70% obesity before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right? Yes. It was we were high 30s for obesity for the actual the BMI, which would then diagnose someone as obese, and then it was 75+% in people that were overweight. Now we are over 40% in obesity, and we're closing on an 80% overweight. This is in America, which is so. But by the way, the numbers got dramatically worse during COVID because no one's moving. We're all inside of our houses. And by the way, all of our mental state was going down, and it's a vicious cycle. Because guess what? If you're depressed, what's the last thing you want to do? You don't want to effing move. Right?
Exercise, not a chance.
Yeah. And so it's just like, and it just keeps feeding on it. So, and the more you don't move, guess what? The more depressed you get. And the more anxious you get. The more anxious and depressed you get, the more you don't want to move.
And you're isolated oftentimes because you're afraid you're going to kill your relatives.
Yeah,
if
you
go
can't,
around
you're
their
not
face.
talking to other
man.
people. You're isolating yourself socially. I mean,
You're not going to work. You're working from home. No, it impacted, I don't know, a single person that it did not impact in some way.
Oh, yeah. It was perfect.
Including us. I mean, our business skyrocketed during this time because we were one of the only operating facilities in this part of the state for quite a while.
Sure.
But it's still, I mean, I would see what this did to society, and the numbers don't lie. I mean, and you also, that's the other problem with something this huge and something this worldwide. You don't really know the ramifications of what this is going to do long term until we get 5, 8, 10 years past it. You're like, wow, what happened to our literacy? What happened to our obesity? What happened to suicide rates?
To our social skills.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
No, seriously. On top of all of it, I have some really good friends in the health industry, in the health insurance industry, and they're saying mental health claims are through the roof. They don't have enough beds for people, like as far as like not satisfied, but like serving the individuals that have with the mental health issues,
like a mental health claim, like you're
whether it's depression, anxiety, suicide attempts. I mean, it is through the roof since the pandemic.
And from an insurance standpoint, they would be making a claim like, "Hey, I need this medication. I need to go on Zoloft.
Yes.
I need to, that's how
They
that's
need professional.
They need professional help.
I need counseling. Yeah, because they'll cover that. They'll absolutely cover it. And so I've got some amazing friends, in that field. And it's right now that. And by the way, to their credit, it's the coolest thing. I was actually having a chat with the CEO of one of the largest insurance companies out there. I mean, brilliant man. And he was in town probably about a month and a half ago, and he said, we are literally shifting all of our focus, not all of our focus, but a massive chunk of our focus over to prevention now. And you know where they're going? Our kids. That's exactly where
I love that.
Bingo.
Love that.
And I turned around and I was like, that's amazing. And I'm like pointing my finger. I was like, I love you. That is amazing. Thank you for caring. And he was really passionate about this because it rocked his own world and his family and everything. And he shared some stories and he was like, we got to do something about this. And I was like, your heart's in the right place. You're a good man. We got to keep this thing going.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you see corporations kind of moving that way too, they have funding now for corporate wellness programs.
Yes.
Where employees have either a personal trainer that's in-house, or they have some type of online option or something like that. So to me, COVID started a conversation that we really needed to have between preventative and then, everything else we have after we come down with disease, after we come down with illness. And I think, the importance of sunlight, the importance of getting outside, the importance of being active, socializing. We really took a microscope to a lot of these different things that we just took for granted before then, but now we were really forced into a corner and had to look at these things.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And I'm glad that that is the most positive spin. And it's not even a spin, but that's the most positive take on what COVID did. And you're right. I believe, in my opinion, that you are 100% correct, is that it put a big microscope and it shifted that conversation over to mental health and into all those other aspects, like you're saying, sunlight and cold exposure and social interactions with people and deep, meaningful relationships. And you're right. And it's so cool that we're here now because all of those play that massive role in our physical health. But again,
and on society as a large.
Oh, yeah.
It's again, I think long before the pandemic, mental health and just that whole world, it seemed to almost be strangely taboo. Like it's like we didn't want to face the fact that we have a mental health crisis.
Right.
And it doesn't just show up in morbid obesity. It shows up in a ton of different ways. I mean, why are people shooting up schools?
Right.
Why are people? I mean, there are these big questions when something, and usually that's the problem. And that's ultimately, I think, one of the problems with something like a school shooting is, in order for us to even see that there's a problem, it has to be something so explosive, so terrifying that finally we see it.
Right.
And I think, again, I like that take on the pandemic, because that is one way to take a positive spin on it, is that, well, maybe now we're actually going to acknowledge that this is a problem.
Yeah, well, absolutely, 100%. And not, it is, and it's, especially in my experience from health insurance companies to even Hollywood, to everything. That's the conversation now, is mental health. You know, and it was interesting because, you know, I still have a lot of incredible relationships out there. And, you know, when you go out there and we talk about physical transformation and everything, everyone's like, yeah, we need to talk about mental health. It's like, yeah, we do. This is awesome. And now it's like, okay, so how do we bring all these things together? But we're doing it. And it is becoming, that is the normal conversation now. And 4 years ago, you're right. It was still taboo, but the thing is, it was there. The beast was there, and I shouldn't even call it a beast, but like the issues were there, and it was growing. And now we can start having the conversation, and it's 100% normalized.
And it used to be like some admission of failure. You know, if you had mental health problems, you're admitting that you failed, and you going out for help outside of yourself was, you know, frowned upon, looked down upon. So yeah, it's great that we're having that conversation now.
Do you think that what he just said pertains more to men than to women? Specifically, acknowledging that you have a mental health, not even a crisis. I mean, let's just say a problem.
Right.
Is it in your experience, does it seem like somehow or another men are more or less likely to seek help for something like that?
In my experience, yes. Especially having been that male who did not seek help for a long time. And then going through my own divorce and everything, that's when I actually started seeing counselors and seeing therapists and ultimately seeing a psychiatrist. And it was my own journey of mental health that really opened up my eyes to it. Even seeing everything else that was going on, it never hits home until you go through it yourself, right? But yes, 100%, and the literature suggests that as well. It's men that
the suicide rates. It's predominantly men.
Yeah.
What is it in America?
Yeah.
I mean, do you know what? I suppose you could probably look that up. The percentage of suicides in America, I believe, is significantly more than half.
Yes,
and it's becoming way more prevalent in youth as well.
Big time.
Yeah, significant amount.
I've been doing a lot of work with my nonprofit in the school districts.
Yes. What is the name of your nonprofit, by the way?
Move 1 Million.
That's what it was. Yes. Your nonprofit, Move 1 Million, which, correct me if I'm wrong, was that established during the pandemic?
It was.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Inspired during the pandemic, and then now it's taken off outside of it, but it was there to serve these. Ultimately, it was to help kids.
Yeah.
It was to help everybody, but our first focus was getting kids moving again virtually. You know, getting them moving, getting them mindful, going through mindfulness practices every single day to bring them here and now, to help increase their focus, etc., and also just for to manage their stress. So it was a combination of the two.
I've got 2021, 69.68 of suicide deaths were male.
Wow. Yeah.
Almost 4 times more than women.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Gosh.
It's just something. Yeah, it doesn't seem like an option, I think, to a lot of people, especially to men. It just seems like you've been sort of integrated with this idea that, like, yeah, you just got to kind of, you know, white knuckle it and just deal with it, man. You're a man. Be a man. Right. That's that phrase carries with it such a loaded statement.
It is.
It almost doesn't give you an exit. It's like, well, okay, that's fine, but this still really, really sucks.
Right.
And it doesn't seem like that gives me a way to deal with this.
Yes.
And that, it just does not seem like the conversation. And it seems like it's getting better. It seems like it is getting better now.
And it's because of these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they're happening all over the place on podcasts. You know, I don't know if you guys watch Ted Lasso at all, but it was really cool to see them all sit around, all the coaches sit around and talk about what they're going through and talk about their feelings. And it's like, okay, if we can start to normalize that, boy, wouldn't it be beautiful to see those numbers go down?
Yeah.
I mean, but also the numbers that we really don't know, and they're out there, but it's hard to find, is the suicide rate in youth. Like you had mentioned.
What is the categorization of youth under the age of 18?
That's to my understanding, and I've worked with a handful of school districts, and I did hear some of the numbers of what it was during
Approximate
the
number.
pandemic.
What did you hear?
In a really large, well, I actually got specific, well, for what it's worth, in a large district, in Arizona and everything, in a year there were 70 plus.
70 in a district
in a year.
in Arizona?
Yeah, in a year.
What? In one district? Was this 2020?
Yeah. 21.
21? Under 18?
21, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So it's really, we got to do something. We've got to do something. Yeah.
I wonder how much of, I mean, because look, we were homeschooled. I was homeschooled up until 8th grade. I mean, so, being at home, being with the right, you just really do wonder what exactly is the root cause of it. And it can't be ignored that during this time, during the pandemic, there were a lot of kids that were staying home with their parents who didn't sign up to be teachers, who maybe didn't really sign up to be parents.
Right.
And other than, I maybe I'm just being dumb here, but I can't think of anyone else to really lay this on other than the parents. It's like 71 kids just killed themselves. Yeah. What are the parents doing?
Right.
Because they're with you. They're not at school. You can't blame it on somebody at a school doing it. They weren't being bullied by someone. They're at home with you.
Yeah, well, who knows who they were being bullied
by? I disagree with that. I mean,
disagree with that?
With social media, 100%. I mean, everyone who's on their phone, it's really so easy to be isolated from your group.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, social media in general is so negative. And I think that a lot of times parents don't know what is being fed to their kids through social media, through what they're watching, through what
they're watching in particular.
Yeah,
I mean,
100%.
My son, we quit letting him watch certain shows and movies before he goes to bed because he would wake up with night terrors. The second we had him quit watching that stuff at nighttime before bed, he slept fine through the night.
What's an example? Like what? Do you have one? I mean,
certain shows. I'm just trying to think. Maybe like a Transformer show or Ninja Turtle or something. Anything with violence, like gratuitous violence. Those would be instances where he would have night terrors. But once he quit watching those things before bed, everything straightened out and he was fine. So
and also going back to, which is it's fascinating that just the impact that exposure has on the kids, social media, and then also just obviously the unreported abuse that was happening within the four walls of the home supposedly was astronomical during the pandemic. So, a lot of these kids, their safe haven is school. That's where that's the one place where they get to eat. That's the one place where they're safe from their parents. Man. And so it's just, and a lot of these kids, they just couldn't handle it, and it's so sad.
What it's a terrifying, it's hard to place yourself in the shoes of someone who's living that type of a childhood, because as someone, I didn't live that type of a childhood.
Right.
To me, I don't know if either one of my school or home life would be considered at all abusive.
Right.
And so it's very hard to imagine I can't go home, and then you're literally stuck at home. And on top of that, you got to think, I mean, those parents who were probably bad parents before are now out of work. Yeah. They don't know where they're going to get money. Maybe there's substance involved. That's a dark, man, that number's starting to make more and more sense.
It does. When you really put it into perspective, it really does. And it's so sad. That's why, obviously the creation of the nonprofit was just to try to bring some goodness to the people that were suffering, to kids that were suffering.
Yeah.
So
how do you do something like that?
Right. Okay. So there's a story behind this. You don't mind if I share, right?
Yeah, please.
So, I was going through my own journey of trying to find happiness after, separation from my wife, and trying to kind of let the dust settle with the family and the kids. And I spent a lot of time out here in Arizona. We've got these buttes out in the East Valley, and so I like to climb them at night, and I just looked out at all the lights. And during the pandemic, I used to climb up there, and I'd look down at all these lights and just think about what's happening inside those four walls. And you start to see all the reports of the depression, the anxiety, the suicide, all these different things. And so I would sit up there, and you can see all the lights of the city, and it's beautiful. And then you just think about all the suffering that's happening down there. And I just kept thinking, and selfishly, I was looking for my own way to find happiness. And it dawned on me when I was up there one night. I was like, and it just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, stop thinking about yourself. If you want to find happiness, what can you do to help those people? So I thought about, okay, how can I serve them? What can I possibly do? And I came up with nothing. I was like, I don't know. So, but at least the mission was there. I was like, okay, I'm going to serve these people. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I went down the hill and I was sitting on the couch that night, flipping through the stations, and I came across a documentary on Japan. And sure enough, they said in Japan, 27 million people, every single day, they do something called Ragio Taiso, which means radio calisthenics. And it started in 1928 with the emperor. And I was like, oh, what is this? And it's the coolest thing because here's the story. In 1928, Emperor Hirohito, he had two huge problems. Is that number one, his people were dying early, between 40 and 45 years old in Japan, in 1928. And then number two, Japan was going through this massive population boom, and there's all these towns are now growing into these massive cities. Japan is massively populated, right?
Yeah.
So number one, he needed to make his people healthier, and he needed to unite them. Okay, so now think about where we are a month and a half into the pandemic. You turn on the TV, there are riots in the streets. People are going nuts. Oh, yeah. We've got everyone's quarantined, even though there are riots in the streets. And it was massive unrest. We're completely divided. Everyone, depression, anxiety, and suicide and everything. And I'm looking at Ragio Taiso in Japan. And sure enough, by 1955, Japan became the healthiest country in the world. In one generation, they became the healthiest country in the world. Fast forward 90 plus years later, 27 million citizens continue to do this Ragio Taiso, which radio calisthenics at 6:30 in the morning. This is what the emperor did. He mandated 3.5 minutes of movement in every school, every corporation, and that's it right there.
Oh my God.
In every school, every corporation, every factory, the entire country at 6:30 in the morning, music started playing on the radio, the same music, 3.5 minutes of piano music every day. And he taught his people 13 moves to warm up their bodies to this music. And it brought his nation together.
Wow.
And they adopted movement. Now it's the national movement of the country.
For 70 years.
Yes. And this is from a
on.
long time ago, 90 plus years. It started in 1928.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
We're 95 years later now. 27 million continue to do it. And I thought, what if 27 million Americans were moving for a couple minutes a day?
Together.
Yes. He used the radio in 1928 to change his country forever. Mm-hmm. We have apps, we have web, we have all these different things. I'm an app developer at this point right now. Like I develop apps. So I literally paid my team, and I just did this privately, personally, because it was a service project. It wasn't even a nonprofit. It was just a service project. I said, I'm going to build an app for everyone to move for free daily on it for 2.5 minutes. And I'm going to build a web portal that anyone can log into this thing and they can move, but it can't stop with movement. We need mindfulness too. So I created a 2.5 minute movement, biomechanically sound. Uh-huh. And I changed the music and I changed the movement because it needed to be powerful. It needed to be new.
Right.
So that's where Move 1 Million came from. So I created a 2.5 minute, 13 moves to the same music every day. And there's a beauty to this. If you create something that's complex, that has a progression, everything, you lose people. Mm-hmm. The simplicity of it will allow it to scale infinitely around the world.
P90X.
Yeah.
Exactly. Shout out to Tony Horton.
Yes, 100%. But the reason he was able to change his entire country is because it was the same movement to the same music every day. And say we started playing the Macarena right now. What do? You know the moves. Why? Because music anchored the movement into your memory.
Right.
What he did is he gave his people the greatest gift in the world. And he used music to anchor the movement into their memory. And when they were children, he taught them how to do this. And for the rest of their lives, they know the first step to move their body forever. I spent 20 years of my life helping people that didn't know how to take the first step. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I'll never do that again. The best gift we can give our next generation, teach them the first step. Do it to music because they'll never forget it. and they will, for the rest of their lives, they will know how to warm up their body properly forever. Every child in America, every child around the world should know this. And then we follow it with mindfulness. Give them the tools to bring them here and now. Give them the tools to know how to breathe. And then we finish off every single session with positive affirmations. Now, this is the part that really gets me because I spend a lot of time in these schools with these kids. You know, I went to a school, a Title I school, a few months back, and after doing Move 1 Million with all the kids, the principal came up and she said, "This is the happiest I've ever seen these kids. You know, 19 of them, they live in the park. They live in tents in the park." And we finish off every session with, "You're so much stronger than you may think you are. And on behalf of myself and everyone who's moved today, you're loved and we believe in you." And a lot of these kids, you think about the numbers that we were just talking about with suicide, they don't hear that. And so I was thinking, like, what greater gift that we can give these kids? We can move them. We can give them the tools to be mindful, to teach them how to breathe, to bring them here and now, to let them know they're not in danger right now. Let them know that someone believes in them and that they're loved. And I can do all that in 5 minutes. And it's just like, and so that's what we built it.
Wow.
And
Wow.
we push it out there. It's like, man, okay, that's my service. And it feels good. And it's really cool because it's beyond me now. It's in 76 countries. We're moving almost 100,000 people a day. And we've got
Wow.
all
So
these,
cool.
yeah, I love it. And we've got all these ambassadors who have stepped up, and now it's not me who's doing that. It's the ambassadors that are now taking it to their communities.
Yeah.
And they get to feel that service, you know, of moving these kids and telling them that they're loved and that we believe in them. It's like, I can't think of anything better, you know?
So incredible.
That's fun.
Absolutely.
And I love, like you said, I mean, a couple things. I mean, music has the ability to ingrain learning in us at such a young age. I mean, why do we all know the ABC song? I mean, we all learned it to music.
Yeah.
This is the same thing.
That's it.
And
Yeah.
to have something so incredibly simple and quick, it's
Yeah.
a 5-minute thing that has that type of impact. And I love the mindfulness is probably the biggest part. I mean, you're getting, like you said, I mean, how many people do not hear the words "I love you" in their life? And at that young age,
That's a huge one, especially for parents to be able to tell. We started telling our children that before they go to bed. We love you. You know, we believe in you.
Yeah.
Those type of things, and our kids light up when they hear that kind of stuff. So it's very important that even though you feel those things, that you need to also vocalize them to the children, especially.
They need to hear it more than you think they do, right? More than we all think they do. Like, you can't hear it enough. And it's just like, okay, well, now, whether it's myself or our ambassador or someone, at least we can pump this kind of love into our next generation, and, like, you know, and belief, and because they're our future, you know. It's like, that's it. Let them know how much we love them, you know. And they might have to hear it 100 times before they start to maybe believe it, but who knows? I mean, because it's going to land. It's going to land with not just one, but with so many. So,
And if they can't love themselves, they don't have the capacity to spread that to others. So yeah.
amen.
and I think we never stop needing it as adults.
Yeah.
I mean, when someone that you know actually genuinely loves you tells you that they love you, there's nothing else like it. Even no matter what type of day you're having, you're just saying, "Oh man, you know what? Thank you for. I love you too."
Yeah.
It's very, very. It's sort of a lost connection, I think, for a lot of us as we age, as we get older and we get distracted and we start working and whatever it is we start doing. We just got to make sure that we always keep that connection.
Yes, absolutely. It's powerful.
Wow.
That's, you know, it's funny because we come into this talking about fitness, and we leave it talking about love.
Uh-huh.
You know, because
Isn't that great?
at the end of the day, that's what transformation is about. You
Oh,
know? Yeah.
Totally.
Totally.
Yeah.
This is so much more. It's so much more than what happens in the gym.
Yes.
It's why I love this so much, and it's why I love getting to sit down with, you know, guys like you and get to talk about this, because everyone has a totally different perspective on. It's why I don't script podcasts.
Right.
It's why these are so powerful, because I didn't know we were going to talk about this today.
Right.
You have no idea. Every single person comes in with their whole new, and what you're doing is so incredibly powerful and impactful, and we would have never known about it if not having spoken with you and having this, and now all the viewers, the listeners, they get to know about it, and it just kind of keeps extrapolating.
Yeah.
And there's a history behind it, which is really cool.
Yeah.
The history from Japan. I think that's very compelling.
It is.
It is,
The proof is there. It changed a nation. It changed a culture. It changed a society. So it's like it's really like the potential is there. So now,
And in the time and place with which I do think it. I mean, it would, to your credit too, it significantly harder to implement something like that in America, because you think about the time in which if the emperor spoke, his word is law.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. If he implements a 3-minute, guess what? Every single, you're not going to get no factory worker like, no, we're not doing that. No, everybody's doing it. They'll come and pull your teeth out.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you think about, I mean, the mobilization, not many places and times could you really do something like that. And bravo to him. Whatever you think about that type of a governmental structure, I mean, to implement such a positive thing for all his people and for it to carry on long after he's gone.
Yeah.
I don't know when the emperor passed, but he's still not here, and his practice is still going.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Tougher to do though in the U.S. I mean, you have so much going on here. The United States is amazing, but it's difficult. It's a tough nut to crack.
It is, but going back to the fact that we're having this conversation about mental health and physical health and prevention, so many more companies are, sorry, I'm tapping on the table. So many more companies are really opening up their eyes to this, and that's how it's been able to grow completely organically without a marketing team or anything. It's like, it's word of mouth that's getting this thing to go. And in fact, for what it's worth, we're actually in August, we're heading out to Hawaii. The Department of Education out there heard about this, and now they're implementing it into public schools in Hawaii.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
That is
Which
huge.
really neat. So August, we're going out there, and they're going to be in fact, all students in public schools in Hawaii will be they'll have access to this next coming school year.
Congrats.
Thank you.
That is big.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's super
definitely.
cool. Yeah. So and our plan.
That's got to be your plan of attack.
That
It's
is.
just to go, I mean, forget even district by, just go state by state.
That's
get
exactly
in touch
it.
with,
Yep.
and you are a person of, influence to the point where you can get in touch with the governor. You can get in touch and say, hey, I've got this program. This is going to take literally 5 minutes out of your school day. I mean, is that worth doing this to you?
Oh.
Is doing this to your schools?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And by the way, the teachers love it because guess what? They just push play and then they let us do all the work for 5 minutes. They can take a break. They can do whatever they need to do. And when the kids are done, they've moved. They're mindful. We're already getting, so we ran surveys on all the schools and the districts that were doing it here in Arizona. And so you see an increase in attention. You see the increase in students that continue to move throughout the day. You see a decrease in disciplinary actions. We saw an increase in attendance. I mean, like, it's a win. And the teacher gets to take a 5-minute break. And by the time the thing is done, these kids are actually attentive and they're ready to learn. Yeah. And it's like, it's the biggest win in the world. And everybody wins here. So and that's the plan of attack is going to go Department of Education to Department of Education to Department of Education. And we just want to hit all the school districts. We'll just
Does
go
each
state by
state
state.
have one Department of Education per state, or are there multiple?
They're different. I don't quite know. I don't know, but I do know Hawaii operates a little bit different. And so
Smaller.
Yes. And I believe, so everything goes like one head office. I believe the other states might have multiple offices that might see over regions, I believe. So we're learning it. But the thing is, we're not ready to move yet to any other states. We want to maximize and make sure that we really create a beautiful system with Hawaii and make sure that all the kids are really well served. And once we learn that, then we can take that package and we'll grow it from there.
And there's a big opportunity with charter schools, private schools.
Yes.
I mean, post-secondary education. There's a lot of places you could branch off with this.
Absolutely. 100%. And they tend to move a lot faster.
I'm sure they've got the bandwidth. A school like that where they're like,
There's less red tape.
exactly.
Yeah.
You don't have to deal so much with government regulation or going to who's who to get something passed. It's just right to the principal or right to whoever administrates something like that.
Exactly.
And it's, I mean, it goes so much bigger to all ages and to just about everybody. I mean, this type of a thing, like you were talking about the corporate thing. I mean, your employees, healthy in their mindset, will be far more productive during their 6, 7, 8 hour shift than if you just make them go all day and don't give them an hour to train or give them 5 minutes to move.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not all that hard.
And to take it further, insurance companies have a financial interest in preventative stuff. I mean, your story was a perfect example of that.
100%. And in fact, like when they do have, I mean, it's beautiful because all the work was done with Raji Otais in Japan, but you can actually see a significant drop in injuries in factory workers when they started doing Raji Otais, because guess what? Their bodies are warmed up. And so you see a massive reduction in workplace injuries.
Sure.
And then nowadays, corporate wellness is huge and they want people moving every 60 minutes. So to give them something like this as an option with and everything's gamified nowadays. So give them some rewards and some points, some kickback points on the back end. It's a win. Yeah.
That's amazing, bro.
Yeah, it's been a
And
lot of fun.
Is this, I mean, what you are doing with, is this your full-time thing now? I mean, what else have you've got a lot of stuff going on at any given time.
Yes.
Are you still on TV? Are you doing shows or?
So I got my gig still with Good Morning Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. That's where it all started 20 plus years ago. So I won't leave. That's my family over there. So I'm doing that every other few Monday mornings. Of course, Move 1 Million, which is the nonprofit now. And then, but my day job is, I built an app called the Transform app coming off of the show, because we collected in 5 years, over 1 million emails from people asking for help after seeing the show, because what happened is that Warner Brothers ended up purchasing the show, and they aired it in 148 countries around the world. And so, they threw subtitles on there, and before you know, our show was everywhere. So we had a lot of people writing in asking for help. Right. We just couldn't help anyone. We could pick 15 people a year. So I always promised myself, when it's all said and done, I want to build a digital platform to help people through the journey of transformation. But at the same time, I've continued to learn so much. So I built an app called the Transform app. Back in 2016, we started it, and it's still going today. But I've been building a new app, a new experience, and it's all about keeping your promises, and it brings in the essential components of wellness. So there's breathing, hydration, acts of kindness, gratitude, steps, there's nutrition, of course, there's training, and there's cardio. And so we have all these different components, and the thing is, I've realized, helping people through the journey, not everyone's ready to start with diet and exercise. Some people just want to start with basic breathing exercises, or coming up with 3 things that you're grateful for every day. And so you actually select which promises that you want to keep to yourself every single day. You only activate those modules. So that's the only 2 modules that you'll see in this experience. And then you begin the journey of transformation that way. And as you're ready, as you can keep those promises to yourself, and you can learn to love yourself more and more and more, as you're ready to take on more things, you can begin to layer in those lifestyle layers, those new modules, those new promises. And it is an insanely robust app. I mean, we're 1.5 years in development, which is a long time.
That is a long time.
And we're looking at a release in we're going to say late August, early to mid-September.
That's so exciting. That's so great. It hasn't come out yet.
I can't wait to bring this to the people. Like, I really do think it's going to help, because it changes the conversation of everything. It's not diet and exercise anymore. It's everything. It's mental, it's physical, and social health. There's acts of kindness that you must do in here if you choose to. But you get to see how doing something kind for someone else, how that benefits your mental health and your physical health.
Yeah.
I mean, it all comes together. So it's beautiful, because now the individual gets to be the artist, and they get to customize their own transformation. But then we'll take them as far and as deep as they want to go. I mean, it is extensive. We have thousands of workouts in this thing. I mean, it's big.
Wow.
It's a big
That's
app.
so cool.
Can't
That's
wait for it.
awesome.
Yeah,
Man.
thank you. I'm super excited to bring it to the world.
Well, man, I gotta say, this has been an incredible experience. So cool to see what you're doing and what you've done and the impact you've had, and just your incredible perspective on this whole thing is just very unique. And so, bravo, man. You've been you're an inspiration to millions of people.
Oh, man,
not just the people who get the transformations from it, but the people working in this industry too.
Well,
I mean, I'm appreciative that you came on, and it was such a great experience getting to talk with you.
Well, thank you for having me. Honestly, it was like it was funny, because when you invited me on, I jumped in here and I took a look at your space, and I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. For everyone listening, I'm sure you've probably seen a little bit of Brandon's studio here, but it is just incredible, from the podcast studio to the gym to everything he's got going on. Like, you guys have got an incredible setup here. I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for watching that episode of Becoming the 1% podcast. If you like the content and you want to see more of it, hit the like and subscribe. Activate that notification bell as well. We really appreciate it. If you guys want to see more of it, we actually have the Becoming the 1% Instagram, and the podcast is available on Spotify. For our socials, we have Strict Vision Athletics on Instagram, we have it on YouTube, and we have it on TikTok.